Hi, welcome to PMO America. Today we're going to talk about a project plan we did for a company that was a startup, and it's a cannabis grow. Now, this is something we'd done a couple of these before, but we didn't have anybody on staff that was a marijuana growing expert, so we have a subject matter expert we use. And it's not just the cannabis part of it's interesting. It really is because it's a highly regulated field. And it's also one that there are a million experts out there, but finding one that you can work with and that can help you get this thing off the ground is a little more difficult. There's obviously a lot of people that have flown under the radar and some that have criminal charges for this, so it can be touchy finding the right people. This one was one of the leads of it was actually a CFO, pretty good accountant, and they have a business plan. And again, so you can use this not just for a cannabis grow, although that's what this is specific to, but for any business. It's also good to have a project plan. And when we did this one, we engaged a subject matter expert. Again, we had done a couple of them before, and one of them was in Colorado. And that one went off. They were doing quite well, but it ultimately failed. And it failed not because of anything they did wrong in growing their product or marketing, it was compliance. The person they hired to run it was also the subject matter expert, the grow guy, who'd helped them get their license, get everything set up to grow the product. A couple bumps along the way, but he got it going, and we found out about a year or 2 years after we were done helping them with the initial project plan that the state of Colorado had not complied and they'd shut it down. So this is a type of project that you really do need a professional project plan for, and it's going to be hard to find somebody like that is also your subject matter expert. So when that's the case, it's not just getting the subject matter expert and the project management expert; it's getting them a couple of them that can work together and work with you. And in the cannabis grow industry, because it's growing so fast, the regulations change a lot. But there are also other risks, just like there are with any business. So for us, after the requirements analysis, the first thing we did was work on the risk register. And that's a thing I think a lot of business startups miss. In particular, I know this in cannabis startups, they miss this. Your risk register is mission critical on a highly regulated business, but you should have one in any business or any project. What are the risks that are likely to happen? And it's not just risks that are threats. There's also risks that are opportunities. There's a risk that you'll miss a certain opportunity. Now, in this business, it's the first one we had started here was just medical marijuana, and that was for the state of Ohio when it was very new. And the company decided not to do it, and we did another project plan for them, a little bit lighter in Oklahoma. They didn't do that, and then they finally did one in Colorado. So this next round we're doing is for a completely different company, and it is it's more on the recreational side. So, but even that, there's a broad range. Do you want to be a big grow operation selling cheap stuff, which a lot of people are doing right now? There's a risk there that you kind of get lost in the shuffle. So what these guys are doing is a boutique. It's starting off with a very small grow, and then they're going to grow that over time into bigger and bigger. But they want to stay the very high end, more expensive, but also higher profit margin stuff. So that piece of the project has to be what's called agile. You want to iterate over it. They want to try a couple things. But because the cannabis industry is highly regulated, the project itself has to be what's called waterfall. And what that means is you want to go step by step and make sure you're adhering to all these regulations. So this is, I also like to tell people that and we've got on our website, if you want to go look, there's a little sample from the risk register. But the other thing that was really interesting here is they didn't just want to get all the risk, and we have a database of risk registers because we do so many different projects. We were able to help with that pretty quickly. But also a work breakdown structure. And when you're starting any business, if you can get from your business plan a true project plan before you ever start your business and then do that work breakdown structure, what that allowed them to do was get much more accurate and their estimations of their budget and the timelines, and then figure out their tolerances. So anytime you're doing a startup, again, having a project plan next to your business plan is a great idea. But in the cannabis startup, if you're getting into that, it's just an absolute necessity, because you can fine tune your estimates more, and then find out where your options are and where your variances and tolerances are, what your risk threshold is, so then you can button it up when you actually get to the grow process. So again, on our site, and I'm showing you this here too, this is the risk register as a starting point, and then the work breakdown structure is kind of a higher level. We know we're going to need somebody to put containers in to grow. We know we're going to need an irrigation system. We know we're going to need HVAC. You want it to be a certain humidity, and that's why some of these are blocked too. When we work with you, we would show you this, but there are certain aspects of it the company wouldn't let us share, because this really helps them grow, and they don't mind it. It comes from our subject matter expert, but when they're paying for it, they said if you share it when somebody else is engaging you, there's nothing to do about it, but they don't want it publicly shown. But there's a lot of issues like this that in these cannabis startups, and if you're just doing it with a business plan, you're going to miss all of these. And if you just do a project plan yourself without the subject matter expert or two that you can bounce things off of, in other words, we've seen this before, where you just use your project manager and have him go look for that. And people have asked us to do that. We don't do that. So we could get a little bit of it, but you need a true subject matter expert that can brainstorm with us and further and further and further refine this project. So then when you get down to what it is you need, you have a work breakdown structure, and you're also going to have a resource breakdown structure, where your resource is also your building. And that's another area where you have risk introduced. In Ohio, I know not every city or every location will allow you to put a grow facility. So as you're building your project to do this, you have to narrow multiple things into one funnel before you ever get to where you could grow your product. So this is when there's a lot of content on our website about this, but it's all snippets. As you do this, you'll find that it's much less expensive than you thought. This project, I think we initially budgeted about $30,000. But say if it's $35,000, that's fine. So what we do on something like this is, we said we only want to spend about $25,000 creating this project plan. And if you do that, and then if we go $5,000 or a little bit over, they were fine with. I think we ended up at about $26,000 or $27,000. But this brings another thing into play, again, mostly for this cannabis business, for any regulated startup. In Ohio, at Michigan, Oklahoma, Colorado, Florida, I can't remember if it was Florida, but every state we went to, the license process was a few months at least. Oklahoma, I think, was pretty quick. So the way you do that is you get your project plan pretty broad from start to finish. But at the steps that are going to be blockers or dependencies in the rest of your projects, those steps are very well defined until you get to that point. And then the rest of it, you have a lot of flexibility, and you don't have to put as much detail into, because you may not get there. And then as you get to the next step, that's how waterfall works. When we get that license, then the next step's, okay, we have to find the building. It has to be in the right area. We have to follow all of the regulations. But what you need to do there, we found out over doing these a few times, is every time you iterate through the waterfall, every time you move to the next section, you have to go down further and 4 or 5 phases out and see if any regulations there have changed. Because even marketing and packaging in Ohio have certain regulations you have to follow. So this is, it's very fun. It's because when I first got into this, I didn't really know anything about this business. But I did know a lot about, my wife and I had run a flower farm before. We grew lavender and everything. So growing is growing, right? And it is. And so that circles back to the big question you'll hear with a lot of project managers. Can any project manager manage any project? And yeah, probably, as long as you have these subject matter experts. But think of it this way: if you're doing this, what you want, if your project manager hasn't done 6 or 7 of these, that's okay if he's a really good project manager, but bring the subject matter experts in too. Then you kind of get both ends of it bound. You've got a professional that can put the plan together for a reasonable amount of money and a reasonable amount of time. And you've got that subject matter expert who's working with them all the time, bounce things back and forth. As like I always say, you want to narrow, and get into the smallest project. Okay, so one thing we're going to do on this one is also tell you how to get started. And again, having been through this a couple times, if you don't have the 25 or 30 grand to spend on a project plan, this might not be for you getting into this legal cannabis business. Your costs and your timelines are going to change. All right, so if you don't have that and you still want to take a shot at it, the way to do this is start you a very small, very vague almost project plan, but get all your pieces into it. Get your requirements done. What do you actually need? That's step 1. Step 2, again, not on every business startup, but on the cannabis grow business, you really want to spend a lot of time and effort on your risk register. And that is, what is the risk? What is the chances of it happening? And if it does happen, what is the impact it will have on you and on your business, organization? And then what you do is you multiply that chance of risk, that probability, by the impact. And do it on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being this is so likely it's going to happen, and 5 on the impact side is it's very damaging. So you can have a 5 on the likelihood, and then you multiply those two together, and you have a 25 there. That's your highest risk impact. So then when you do that, so you've got your requirements, step 1, your risk analysis, step 2, that you started this with your mission statement or your scope statement, but you already kind of know what that is and you're building this. Your scope statement is always, obviously, we want to create a business that can grow legal marijuana, either medical or recreational. And so then what you want to do then is when you get into what's called a work breakdown and resource breakdown, just very high level, we know we need containers. We know we need lights. We know we need air conditioning. We know we need people to water the plants, to fertilize the plants, to measure things. But don't get down to that level yet. Just, we need these things. And then go through, okay, this is roughly what it's going to cost to lease the building. This is roughly what this is going to cost. And then at the end of it, maybe this is what it's going to cost to ship this, create our packaging. And if you do that rough project plan yourself, again, you're not going to be able to run your whole project off of it. This is just very high level. You can use that, and then as your estimates get better and better and better, then you make your decision, okay, we want to pursue this. Then you want to get a very professionally done project plan into there to make sure that's all followed. And the other bit of advice I'll give you, having seen this a couple times, these things fail a lot more than you would think. And a lot of people get into this thinking, we're growing marijuana. Everybody's buying that stuff nowadays. And there are a lot of people buying it. And they think, well, it's a weed. It must be easy to grow. And it sure is. But it turns out, and I didn't really know a lot about this business at all. I grew up in the 80s, and marijuana was about equivalent to heroin back then. But it's easy to grow bad product. But apparently it's not quite as easy to grow good product. In fact, it's very difficult. You have to use something called clones. And part of this project, I don't know what this is, they're using what's called mother clones, and they have a process to make those. So once you start, the interesting thing we found, that wasn't the reason these businesses were failing. The reason that the 2 and maybe 3 is on kind of the fence too, of the 3, 2 of them were not involved in it all. We just know of them. The one we were, and that they all 3 failed because of regulatory compliance issues. So this type of business is something that you want this to be have continuous projects. They can be small, but part of the reason for this is so you can loop through things time and time again and build strong accountability into that regulatory side. In Ohio, I can tell you we have heard that if you make a mistake there and it's not going to hurt somebody, it's that Ohio is getting better at working with you. You might get a little fine, but they'll work with you. Other states will shut you down right away. And even in Colorado, where we know of two of them that did get shut down, you really want to communicate with those regulators because they're under the same pressure you are. Things are changing a lot. So again, very interesting business. We're building some real expertise in this. We were hesitant about doing this because some people don't like this, and I get that. But it's a challenging business. They're challenging project plans. But as we get better and better, we decided, we want to do this. They are a lot of fun. They're very interesting. And when you pull them off, some of the investors that are doing this are making a lot of money with a very small initial investment. And it seems to be right now, from looking at the market, that the ones that are doing very well, we're seeing this in Michigan, not quite Ohio yet, but it's coming here because they're making it easier to get licenses. These grow operations that just focus on very high quality small batch stuff, and they may have 2 or 3 or 4 different flavors or strains, I think they call them, and then they charge a lot more for those. But just like everything else, people are paying for quality in this business, and I think it's starting to look kind of more like craft beer. You're going to have your big cannabis providers that grow stuff that everybody kind of likes, I guess. But you're also going to have these small boutique grow operations that do very well. So hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. It was first one I did of these 3 or 4 years ago was interesting. We've got a lot better at them. They're really interesting. If you're thinking about starting a cannabis grow business, you've kind of got your plan together or your business plan together, give us a call. We'd be glad to spend a half hour even talking to you, no charge for initial consultation. We're learning a lot about this, and I think we can help you get this off the ground and have a lot higher chance of success than if you did it on your own. Again, it's a lot more affordable than you would think. Thanks for watching.